You've seen it. Somebody posts their TSP balance on Facebook or Reddit and asks, how am I doing? They end up with 500 different answers. You might be wondering the same thing about your TSP balance. The reason why they get so many answers is the balance alone doesn't matter as much. Let me explain. 400K at 35 versus 400K at 65 is completely different. You've got years ahead of you of compounding interest if you're 400K at 35 versus at 60, you're looking at starting withdrawals if you haven't already. And whether or not those dollars are in traditional or Roth or a mix has a completely different outcome of what that money can look like for you. And everybody's situation is different. You could be a civilian who never had any federal or military service. You could be military retiree collecting pension as soon as you retire, or somewhere in between, being a veteran or that didn't retire, or having guard and reserve time that calculates different age when you actually get your pension. Whether or not you're single or married contributes to it as well. You're going to have different expenses, maybe different incomes depending on the situation. Maybe your spouse worked. Maybe they're in the military and also retired with you or something like that. They could have their own pension, their own TSP, their own VA benefits. Maybe they worked in the civilian sector and have their own 401k balance. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of factors, as you can start to see. That number only means something in context. What you're ultimately looking for is the cash flow that you need in retirement is what you have in retirement savings going to cover that. Your retirement accounts are telling you how much cash flow they can produce. That's only a portion of your overall retirement. So you have military retirement, you have a VA, your VA benefits, and you have Social Security that's going to kick in at some point. Those are all guaranteed incomes. Now, obviously, if you're early in your career, you don't know what some of those numbers would be. Maybe you can't guarantee on a military retirement. Maybe something will happen and you'll have to get out before your retirement date. Or you don't really know your VA benefit until you actually get out. But there's obviously ways to kind of calculate and take some estimates for planning purposes. Your Social Security retirement income benefit is going to vary based on several factors of when you start the benefit, how many years you worked, and the income level that you had. You can go on the Social Security Administration website, put in your information, and it'll give you your estimated Social Security retirement benefit. This helps obviously for putting this into the planning for how much your guaranteed income is and at different points in your life when you're going to have those retirement incomes. Understanding your guaranteed income is only a portion of the formula. Another portion is knowing exactly how much you're actually going to need in retirement per year. Well, the median American in 2025 had their retirement income at $75,000 a year. Well, that's the median. Is that enough for you? Is that too much? Too low? How do you know? The 80% rule is a good place to start to figure out how much you're going to need each year in your retirement years. What it says is you're going to spend 80% during each retirement year of what you actually made in your working years. So say you made $100,000 a year, it's saying that you're going to need $80,000 a year in retirement to get you through. Now, that number is just a rule to start, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. If you're retired military and you have TRICARE, your health care is going to be lower. Say you have other income streams. Maybe you were a huge saver and you were contributing 30, 40% into your retirement incomes. Well, if you were making $100,000 a year and you're contributing 40% into retirement savings, you're really only kind of bringing home 60,000, and then take away some taxes and stuff like that. You're under 60,000 for sure by that point per year. Well, does that mean you actually need to have 80,000 in retirement? Well, it depends. How old do you want to retire? Where you want to retire? One viewer commented that he has his military pension, another pension, retired at 57, he lives in the Philippines. Well, if you think back to that $75,000 median retirement income for 2025, that $75,000 may not be needed, or it'll stretch a lot further. Cost of living of where you're at plays a huge factor on how much you actually need in retirement. Now, parts of the formula are starting to come together. You understand how to figure out how much you're going to need each year in retirement with the cash flow. You understand your guaranteed income that you could have coming in. You take those and figure out your gap. If you want to be a little bit above median and say you want $80,000 in retirement and your guaranteed income is 60,000, well, the gap there is 20,000. So you know that you need $20,000 a year coming in from your retirement accounts. That's the number where that original question of, here's my balance, is it enough? Well, let's find out. $20,000 a year at using the 4% rule. And I understand the 4% rule is a little outdated. Most financial advisors are using 4.7 now, but that number really depends on when you retire, your longevity of how long you're going to live for. And obviously one of those you have control over and the other you don't. But let's stick with the 4% rule now for the math. So $20,000 at 4% rule means you need $500,000 in a retirement account. And that assumes that it's a Roth account. If it's traditional, it's going to be a little more because you're going to take out taxes as you withdraw. But a Roth, if you've already paid the taxes, you're done. That $20,000 a year is pure cash in your pocket. Here's the honest truth, though. This is really hard to plan for while you're still serving. Your retirement income isn't guaranteed. You don't know what your VA rating is going to be. These two numbers alone made up a huge portion of the guaranteed income that we just talked about. So what do? Well, plan for the worst and hope for the best. You can start at zero. Assume you have no military retirement and no VA benefit. What does that look like? Now you have a range you can kind of look at if you're like, okay, well, I'm more than likely going to be an E7, or I'm more than likely going to be a lieutenant colonel. You can take those range, those estimates and say, 10% disability to 100% disability from your VA rating. You have a range and you can take some estimates and use a little bit more calculated decision making in order to figure out how much your guaranteed income could be. This viewer said it best. He enlisted in 1982 thinking he'd only do 3 years. I'm sure you can relate. He ended up retiring as lieutenant colonel in 2010 with 25 years of service. Said he saved like mad the whole time, not knowing how it would turn out. He goes on to say he ended up not needing the savings because his pension covers everything. This is a great place to be in. Not knowing your outcome is exactly why you save like this. Now let's look at a real life example. That 35-year-old that posted their TSP balance of $400,000, assuming it's all in Roth, they fast forward a little bit. They retire as an E7, 20 years. They've got 80% VA disability rating. They're looking at about $60,000 of guaranteed income. Now, let's say they decided, hey, they want to be the median. $75,000 a year in retirement is plenty for me. So 75, subtract 60, they have that gap of $15,000. Well, is that $400,000 Roth TSP balance going to cover that? Well, depends on obviously when they retire, but let's just say they retire at 60 years old. At 60, that balance is going to be over $2 million. They're in a good spot. So the answer, hey, yes, for that person, if all those other factors are there, fit in. So how do you figure this out for yourself? There's a lot of calculators out there that are kind of basic. They don't give you all the information that you need. They don't give you the opportunity to put in all these different factors. What you actually need to kind of figure out the specifics for your situation to really know, here's how much I'm going to need in retirement. Here's all my guaranteed income. Here's what my assets that I have from a TSP or an IRA, or maybe your 401k. If you're in my situation, I've got my military retirement, my VA rating. I have my 401k from my work, IRAs, rental income coming in. I have my spouse who has some of the similar, obviously we share some of those with the rental income. So what do you do with all that information? How do you really figure it out? Well, there's these financial plans that you usually need a financial advisor for. A lot of them will charge you a lot of money, but if you're a veteran, there's so many resources out there. One of them, Veterans Plus. They'll pair you up with a financial advisor absolutely free. And guess what? They have access to these calculators. You can use them, put all your information in. You can put in when you want to retire, how much you think you're going to need in retirement, how long you think you're going to live. And then you can add in things like, oh, I want a new car every 5 years. I want to buy that boat that I've been dreaming about. I want to buy that RV. I want to travel the world on a 365-day cruise, or whatever the things that matter to you, how you want to live your retirement. You can put in and figure out, hey, am I on track? So use the resources that are available. As with anything in life, the answer is really in the whole picture, not just in one piece. If you found this helpful, please like and share it with others. If you have questions, drop your comments below. I'd love to hear your story and how your retirement planning is going. Sorry.